Welcome, Comadres and friends. This is Maria Ferrer, Executive Director of the Las Comadres para las Americas, and we want to welcome everyone. Our interview tonight is with author Sofia Robleda, a Mexican author. She spent her childhood and adolescence in Mexico, Saudi Arabia, and Singapore. She completed her undergraduate and doctorate degrees in psychology at the University of Queensland in Australia. And her debut historical fiction novel, Daughter of Fire, was an Amazon First Reads and Editor's Pick for July 2024, and it hit the top 100 Kindle bestsellers list. The best way to follow Sofia's journey is by joining her in her newsletter, Author Antics. Check out her website, www.sofiarobleda.com. It's SOFIAROBLEDA. Okay, so check her out there. So thank you, Sofia, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
Yes, her beautiful book. We love
Also the name.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
The cover it went very well with the book. All that reds and yellows and very,
I
very beautiful.
I cried when I saw it.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's beautiful. Mystic and magical and everything. So whoever did the cover did a good job.
Yeah, Kimberly Glider. Kimberly Glider was the designer, so very pleased.
So as we're reading your bio and stuff, you are in Mexico, then you go to where did you go? You went to
Saudi,
Australia, you went to Singapore and everywhere. How did you and your family stay connected to your American roots?
Well, we're Mexican, so yeah, but I mean, yeah, American, Mexico is in America. But I mean, we left when I was 10 to Saudi Arabia, so I spent a lot of my life in Mexico, and went to primary school there. So, but when we left, I guess the biggest thing was, we used to celebrate all of the things that Mexicans celebrate. So Independence Day, we used to, celebrate that. We used to celebrate Day of the Dead. We used to, I guess, yeah, just kind of like honoring the traditions that we have that are special to Mexico. We had piñatas. Like, we were the only kids that had piñatas in our birthday parties. We would sing. We spoke Spanish in my house, so that was another kind of link to our culture and our country. So, I guess, like, storytelling as well. My mom and my dad made sure that we had like lots of books. I still read in Spanish, but I used to read more in Spanish when I was a child. And we used to have like stories of, well, myths, like Mexican pre-Hispanic myths. Just, I guess that we used to go back home every summer. So, kind of keeping up the links with the family and being home and cooking food, Mexican food. My dad is a great cook, so he's just amazing. So always have loved Mexican food. So yeah, I guess that it's just how we lived our lives, really. It just was a Mexican way, just in another country. Yeah.
Been really good Mexican ambassadors.
Yeah, I used to think of myself a bit like that, because people have said to me many times in their lives, like, "Oh, you're the first Mexican I've ever met." Because sometimes it's like in these places where it's quite far, sometimes you are the first person that they meet, and it's both kind of like an honor and a little bit of of not a curse, but it's also like, well, there's I'm just one of millions, so like I can't possibly represent like the richness of our culture and carry that weight on my very young shoulders, but I will try my best to give a good impression.
Yeah, that's very good. So give us a brief synopsis of Daughter of Fire for those that are just discovering your book.
Daughter of Fire is a historical fiction about a young woman living in 16th century Guatemala. She is half Spanish, half Mayan, and she's part of a Mayan noble house whose duty is to preserve the Popol Vuh, which is the Mayan story of creation. It's a real text that survived the conquest, the Spanish conquest, one of the only texts that survived the Spanish conquest. And no one knows who wrote that book in real life. So my story is basically a reimagining of those anonymous authors who risked their lives essentially to preserve um, their their stories, their culture, and their beliefs when they weren't supposed to. Yeah.
So the Popol Vuh is an actual book.
Yes, it's an actual um, uh, manuscript. It's a codex. Uh, it's there's the only kind of copy that we have is it's actually a copy that was seen by a friar 300 years ago, Friar Jimenez. He was a Spanish monk, and he saw the the original, which was thought to be actually a copy of the original, and he wrote down the text in Quiche Maya, which is what it was written in. Um, and then he wrote a translation into Castilian Spanish. What he saw was like the text had been written in Latin, so the people who had made this copy that this friar saw, it was already after the Spanish conquest, and they knew how to write in Latin script.
Mm.
So they wrote the text phonetically, how it sounds, and then preserve their story. So it was a real act of rebellion to kind of do this and write it down phonetically and preserve these stories, when they could have been killed for it, essentially. Um, and then they kept that story, and then a couple hundred years later, this friar saw it and he made a copy and wrote a translation, and that's what survives today. It's in the Newberry Library in Chicago, which I would love to go and see for myself. But that's what we have. No one knows who wrote the Latin version, and we don't know where it is. All we have is the copy and the
The
translation from
copy.
Friar Jimenez. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But it's still here. It's still going. Really important
Well, who knows
text.
that there was not a Catalina who really did it?
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's why I was like, why no one can tell me. No one can tell me that it wasn't a woman who did this.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Mm,
Now, I read somewhere
mhm.
that that you almost cried when you learned that the church had burned practically all the Mayan texts,
Yeah, I did cry.
during the conquer. You did cry. You
Yeah, I
did cry.
did. I did cry.
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
it was um it was I don't know how I got onto that. I mean, it was kind of like I was doing this ancestral search, and I was doing more research into the Mayans and the Aztecs, um and like post conquest, and then I came across this fact about this bishop in Yucatan who gathered like hundreds of Mayan texts, and yeah, and idols, and burnt them, and like just that I just got so upset by that. It was like like this shock at all that lost like knowledge, and I just was crying. And then I was reading about the survivors of those fires of the Inquisition, essentially the text that survived, and that's when I came across the Popol Vuh. And I was like, no one knows who wrote this. They did it after the conquest. What?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was
So
like,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was really something I became quite obsessed with, to be honest.
Yeah. No, no, no. It is upsetting,
Yeah.
especially now that unfortunately we may not be burning books, but we are certainly banning books.
Banning books for
You
sure.
know? Ugh.
Banning books, cutting library funding, cutting museum funding, especially diverse books and Latino books. They're, the most banned books are diverse books.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep. Very Puritanish, and they're all scared of something. They're all scared of something. Um, so tell us what or who inspired Catalina's story?
Well, there was this kind of notion of well, no one really knows who wrote this, but they do, researchers do think that it was the representatives of the three noble houses of the Kichimaya at the time. And so two of the people that I wrote about, Cristobal and Juan, the king, the deposed
Hmm.
king, they were real historical figures. And I thought, well, the king sounds like he probably would have been part of it. And Cristobal is one person that I think is very likely to have been part of rewriting the story. So I wanted him in there. But then the third person, I was like, okay, well, there's no role here. And also I'm always been kind of very interested in women's history, and especially kind of thinking back in my ancestors, kind of the the realization at one point there would have been a mixed race relative of mine that was like half and half, and how would they have dealt with that duality, especially if you were the first mestizo, the first mixed race person in well, in the new world, the continent of the Americas. And I just found that the psychology behind that just really interesting. So it was kind of like, well, why not have a woman who is mixed race, who is kind of dealing with the aftermath of the conquest, and kind of having to reconcile the fact that her father is a conquistador basically, and her mother is one of the conquered, but also a noble woman, because um, the Spanish did recognize the native nobility, and it was very important to them to form bonds with the nobility to kind of establish their new rule. So they were still held in very high esteem, the nobility of the new world. um and so to me that was all really just interesting, like how could a woman have dealt with also with the constraints of her world, the constraints of the age, of all of the misogynist rules that existed at the time. So all of these questions kind of led me to developing this girl. And actually, I was watching that documentary with Alejandra Ocasio Cortez, where the one in Netflix where she where basically shows her she's going against the guy that she won against in her Democratic thing. I just loved her fire. I just was like, oh my gosh, she has to have the spunk of AOC, like. So she actually did inspire me a little bit to write Catalina, but obviously she would have been uh a lot more. I wanted her to be kind of historically realistic as well, a lot more kind of constrained. Just there were so many constraints, women were property.
Hmm.
So it was just really hard to kind of imagine AOC's fire in this like vase that she had to kind of live within. So yeah, that was, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that was all
Yeah,
that
no,
kind of
no,
went in my mind. Yeah.
no, Catalina was very interesting. She was a very, you know, bold young woman, very courageous, respectful. And it's true, she is basically the first mestiza of the new world, and on one side there's her father, who's the conqueror, her mother, who's the Mayan princess and stuff. Pero, I was curious at the
Mhm.
beginning. I was thinking, just like you said, they when the Spanish came, they had to make nice with the people. They kept the kings intact, maybe took away their power, but they kept the nobility intact so that people
Mhm.
wouldn't
Mhm.
revolt or
Mhm.
anything. And then married into the houses so that they can have, a true connection. So they were part of the family,
Yeah.
therefore they can take over.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting was that it was when her father was away on business, that he went away on business, that they came and took her mother,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So it was like she was the wife. Why would they take her? Even if they knew what she was doing, why did they take her? But then, the church doesn't care about whatever. They'll just take anyone. Pero he
They
was,
have to make examples, and they did make
yes,
examples. I mean,
they did make an
the,
example of her.
yeah, yeah,
And her father, and I love when you put down that her father didn't smile for a year.
he did
He
love
didn't, he
her.
hardly ever talked for a year. So I thought maybe he did feel a little something extra for her.
Yeah, I think he did, and I think you know, in all fairness, like Don Alonso was a real man as well. He was a real he was the president of the Audiencia of Guatemala. He was and he was trying his best to enact the new laws of the emperor, the Spanish Emperor Charles V, which were trying to prevent the slavery of the indigenous people, and just basically everyone just doing whatever they wanted with the indigenous people, which is what was happening. And he was fighting the Spanish, to put these new laws in place. They tried to kill him, like they hated him, so um and he did very well. Like, he really did improve the lives of the indigenous people. um because you can imagine how bad it was that he actually improved things. So and they tried to basically get the people of Guatemala to forget him. Like, even I couldn't even find his gravestone when I went there. I thought there was it was meant to be in one place. When I went, it wasn't there. No one could tell me where it was. So he's like been erased from history because they hated him so much for what he tried to do. And so, I did, even though he is described in all the complaint letters of him as this like crude, brutal man, brute of a man, with like this sharp tongue. um he did try his best, so I wanted there to be kind of some level of humanity to him as well. um because I do think within the time, the era, um he tried to do something, you know really quite extraordinary, that was going completely against the grain of what every single Spanish person in the New World was wanting him to do, which was just let us do whatever we want with the indigenous people. Let us enslave them, even though we're not meant to. We can do what we want because we own the land and our emperor is way back there. Like, what's he gonna do? And Alonso was saying, no, like, this is the law. And you know he really did try. So I admire him for
Mhm,
that. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was probably an enemy on both sides. The Spanish are looking at him like, you're a traitor, you should let us do whatever we want. And
Hmm.
the Indians are thinking, oh my God, this is all because of you. You're not helping us, you don't care. And so he was, between a rock and a hard place, just like his
Yeah.
daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. So trying to kind of do, everyone's trying to do something they're not kind of supposed to be doing or allowed to do. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now you do such a good job of mixing fact and fiction, and your book is so detailed and so rich, and I could just see it,
Mhm.
you could just see this country, you could just see these people. And did you like when you found these, when you found out about Don Alonso and Juan and Cristobal and stuff, is that where the little, the story started taking shape? And then you went out and did more research to put in more facts into the story? Is that how you did your research?
Yeah, so it was kind of like a bit of just like a spiral, really. So it was like the Popol Vuh, and then, oh, no one knows who wrote it, and then the characters, and then, oh, this character, they think he wrote it, and oh, there was a king, he was living at the time, and he had this position, and then in within the government. And so it's like, oh, what would it have been like to be a king without a kingdom and working for the people who took it away from you. And then it was like, okay, well, what was the place like? And so it was just like more questions, and then I kept finding details like about Alonso and what he was trying to do. I was like, oh my gosh, this man would be amazing to write about. What if he's the father of Catalina? Like, so just kind of like popping these things together. But really, what I knew that I really wanted to go to Guatemala and see these places for myself. Um, that it was really important to me because obviously I would be looking at photos, I'd be looking but it was like, yes, okay, I'm from Mexico, but Guatemala is a different country. Like it's different. We're not the same. You can't paint everything with the same brush. And I just really, really wanted to go. And I was very lucky. I found these insane deals from here to Guatemala. And it was like right before COVID. So I got to be in Guatemala for like 2 weeks. Yeah, 10 days. I was meant to be there for 3 weeks, but then everything started shutting down and I had to basically escape to Mexico as quickly as possible. But I got to see everything that I needed to see. I got to see, Antigua, which is what is Santiago de los Caballeros, is now called Antigua, Guatemala. And so, I saw the volcanoes, like they've, you know, spewing ash. And I went to basically everywhere in the book. I went to and especially the Museo del Popol Vuh in Guatemala City. I went there and I just spent like hours there, and I was like crying because I was like, oh my god, this is everything I ever dreamed of. Like such a nerd. But I think that really just took everything up a notch, because then I was there. I took so many notes about everything I could see, everything I could hear, everything I could smell. You know, it just was like constantly writing down things to bring the place to life. So, which is what I really was missing. I think the missing piece was that I hadn't been there, so I wanted to go to just bring it to life. Yeah, yeah.
Did you find pictures of Don Alonso, of King Juan, and
No, no,
Cristobal?
there's no pictures of them. There's a there's a book, one book that I found about Don Alonso that I have, which I was super lucky to find, because he's basically, like I said, been shunned from history. But there was one researcher who's now passed away who did this whole study of him. And so that was just a gold mine of information for me. um and there was just some research articles that I found on Juan de Rojas, which is the Lord Juan, the king, um, based on the fact that the other king of the Quichamayas, Juan el Grande, I call him Juan el Grande, but he was Juan Cortes. Um, so there were two kings basically ruling it side by side at the same time. That was the kind of way that they did it. And this other king, he went to Spain to try and petition for the crown to grant them more more rights. And his ship was like attacked by pirates or something. So that yeah, but he survived, and then he had an audience with some really high officials, but then they said no, you can't have anything. Um, but that went down in history. So there was that kind of that information about the other king of the Highland Mayas. But there isn't really much more about them. But I tried to find anything and everything that I could find. I basically read if I could, if it was there. I've like laid an eye on it.
Yeah. No, you did a good job of filling in the blanks.
Yes, I tried. Yeah, there were lots of blanks. So that's, I guess, where the fiction came in, because there was lots of blanks. But I tried to make it as realistic as possible, whilst also kind of um, bringing in more of the kind of like magical realism side of things, which I um enjoyed. I was, originally kind of a fantasy writer, so it was hard to kind of let go of that. But I think it's in our kind of literary history. It's part of our lives. It's part of our culture to have, you know mysticism and spirituality and magic. So um to me, it was just culturally relevant, really, to put that in, all those things in there.
No, and you put them in very well. There was magic, myths, the ghosts and stuff. I mean, it was beautiful. It added a rich texture to your writing and to the story, you know? When she's like in her bed at the beginning and she's like And he put the curse on her, and she's like, yes, tell him I'll give him the book, I'll give him the book, I'll give him the book. And yes, it had added an extra layer of of richness. But I have to talk to you about you do a good mix, fact and fiction, and you fill in the blanks and stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
Are you ever scared that people might accuse you of not being authentic enough? Because nowadays todo is, cultural
Mm,
appropriation.
mm,
So are you
mm.
scared that sometimes people may say, "Oh, that's not Mexican, that's not Mayan, that's not you're just," that they would
You're not
attack
you're
you for
not you're
not
not
being.
enough, like, you're not enough of this or you're not enough of that.
Yes.
Um, I think it's a very serious question. I am not necessarily scared, uh, but I am mindful of it, and I am mindful because I, one of the kind of, I guess I am scared of, like, becoming a colonizer, and kind of taking, um, uh, because it is also part of my heritage. I do have Spanish heritage, and I think that was something that I kind of grappled, and kind of was a question within me, like, how much am I? How much do I? How much can I really explore this? But I think that's why, first of all, Catalina was mestiza, because she has both sides, and so do I. Um, Also, this is a story that happened like 500 years ago. So one of the things that I always say is, like, can anyone really claim to understand someone who lived 500 years ago? But at the end of it, I think it comes down to, like, having a deep respect. And for me, that was, like, really important that there was respect for the characters, that they weren't caricatures, that they were rich, that they had, you know uh, personalities, that they had flaws, that they had good things and bad things about them. And it was really important that I handled all of the Kichimaya side with, real respect, because I'm not Kichimaya. I can't claim that. I don't actually know where my indigenous ancestry comes from, because that has been erased, and that is part of our culture, that a lot of us have indigenous ancestry that has been uh, erased through forced assimilation. Um, and so I think there are a lot of Latinos who are trying to connect with their pre-Hispanic roots, but don't know how. And I think that's also why I connected so strongly with the Popol Vuh, because it is a guide to people connecting with their stories and their indigenous culture. Um, we can always connect through storytelling. We can always connect through art, and that was really powerful to me. That I really felt that I was connecting, and that I was being led to write the story. Um, so I wanted to honor that, I guess, that feeling inside me that was really kind of being motivated by respect, by reverence, by love, and by wanting to kind of do a really good job to write for our people, who lots of us are struggling to kind of find our footing, because we are living in you know two worlds a lot of the time. Um, so I don't know. It is a question, I guess, that I am mindful of, and I think it is important to kind of keep in mind. But I do think that if you are writing for, for your audience is like my audience, the people that I was writing for are Latinas, are women, are hopefully indigenous women too, who want to know more about their lost ancestry. So I think that's really who who who's in your mind. Who are you writing this for? I think that counts
Hmm.
a lot as well. Is
No,
it?
that's very, very important. Is there an English translation of the Popol Vuh?
Yes, there is an English translation. There's many actually, and the one that I was using, well, there were two, but the one that I ended up using more was translated by Professor Ellen Christensen, who actually read my whole book as well. Yes, and he provided like detailed, because he's an expert in the Kichumaya language, the Kichumaya traditions, and I wrote to him. I was like, look, this isn't my language. I don't know it. I tried writing to the there's a special school, the Quiche Academy of the Quiche Language School, but unfortunately I didn't hear back from them or the Popova Museum. But he wrote back to me, thankfully, and I was like, I've written this book. I've got all these Quiche Maya words that I keep finding like 7 different spellings for. I don't don't know like how to spell these. I don't know if they're correct. Please could you see them and just, any notes on the culture or anything that you find, the history. And he was amazing. Like, I can't even tell you the way this man's mind works. Like, he's like a catalog of everything the Quiche have ever done. So I was incredibly lucky. He was really enthusiastic about it. He was really um just really, complimentary of it, and he provided some really good feedback on the spelling, and just, how any things that he felt. I said, just anything that you want to say, anything, it doesn't matter, just put it in there, and I want to know. So he was fantastic. I really recommend his translation as well. It's a beautiful translation. Yeah.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a treasure that you have
Yeah.
found in that man.
Yeah, no, I'm so grateful to him. I sent him the book signed. I said, thank you so much. I just I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that I was able to connect with him, and that he was just, without anything. He didn't even ask to be paid. Like, I was like, he just like answered within 2 days, like with my manuscript full of notes, full, just
Wow.
and yeah, so I was just so pleased, so happy, so grateful. Yeah. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so what's next? Are you writing another book about the Kichi Mayan?
Um, so I'm moving closer to home now. I've my next novel, actually, it's coming out next year, and it's called The Other Moctezuma Girls, and it's about the um the life and death of Isabel Moctezuma, who was the last Aztec empress. She survived the conquest, and she survived 6 marriages. She survived giving birth to 7 children. She survived the plague. No one knows this woman. How is it that nobody knows this woman? But she left behind a will, and this is a real document that she left behind. And in my story, she leaves behind like a second will, an account of her life, and she hides the stories in different places around the Valley of Mexico, and her 2 daughters go and find them and put together their mother's like true story. um, so that's coming. That's been it's coming in February, I think. And I'm in the process of I'm starting the developmental edits this month at some point. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited about it, and I'm really excited for people to know about Isabel Moctezuma. So yeah, that's she's next. She's next.
Yes, so you have to keep us appraised of your progress and
Oh,
when
I
the book
will.
comes out.
I will. I will.
Okay. So thank you very much for being with us. We're glad that you stayed up, to be with us and everything. And good luck on all your tours and
Thank
everything. And now Tess will close the night for us.
Oh, well, no, thank you so much. I do want to say thank you so much for having me. It's been such a lovely time talking to you, and connecting with you all. Thank you, comadres.
Thank you.
Adios. Yay.
Hi.
Tess?
Thank you, Sophia. That was a wonderful interview, and
Oh, thank
finding
you.
and connecting. It's amazing, it was meant to be, when you make those connections. And it seems like, finding that the translator was wonderful. So thank you very much. And we thank Amazon Crossing for sending books to our registrants. And we hope to hear from you again, Sophia. We wish you all the luck with your new writing. And
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.